Hi, everybody. This is Joe from PrepAgent. Hope you're having a good day today. Today, we're going to go over some vocabulary. Who's excited for vocabulary? Anybody? Okay. Hello, Angela, Christopher. Good to see you guys today. Okay, so let's get this started. First, we have implied contract. Who here knows what an implied contract is? Anybody? Who's first on the board? Implied contract. Okay, Toaster says expressed by actions. Good. Okay, we often say looks like a duck, walks like a duck, acts like a duck. It must be a contract. Harika, you beat me to the punch. You got it. The duck story. That's exactly right. Can you guys give me an example of an implied contract? Who here could give me an example of an implied contract? What do you guys think? I see Dania wrote, like going to a restaurant and they expect you to pay. That's a great example of an implied contract. When you sit down at a restaurant, you do not sign a contract, but it's expected you pay after you eat. Good job, guys. Can you give me an example of an implied contract in real estate? What do you guys think? Ooh, an Uber driver fee. That's another good one. Yes. Who can give me a real estate example? Tosha, nice job. When the agent's operating without the seller authority and then accepts it. Okay, good. When there are actions and the actions are agreed upon by both parties, you have your implied contract. Okay, really quick. Who here could tell me the 4 essentials of a valid contract? Who knows the 4 essentials of a valid contract? Anybody? Okay, I got Roberto writing mutual consent. Excuse me. Mutual consent's 1, also known as meeting of the minds or agreement. Capable parties. Okay, so I got mutual consent, lawful object, consideration, and capable parties. Everybody write that down. Mutual consent, lawful object, consideration, and capable parties. Okay, everybody write that. And everybody remember, mutual consent and agreement, that's the same thing. So don't get those two confused. They're the same thing. Okay, legal age is not one of the essentials because that would be under capable parties. I see Grant wrote legal age. That's under that umbrella of capable parties, Grant. Okay, if a contract is lacking one of those 4 essentials, does that make the contract void, voidable, or valid? What do you guys think? Void, voidable, or valid? That makes it void. Good. That makes it void. Okay. Okay, and there's the answer for implied contract on the board. All right. And for those guys who are new today, make sure your settings are at 720 HD. If not, the screen will come across blurry. So make sure your settings are 720 HD. If somebody would not mind writing that in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Just 720 HD in the settings. Okay, next word. Oh, Stephanie asked me a question. What makes a contract voidable? Who here could give me an example of a voidable contract? What makes a contract voidable? Okay, what do you guys think? What makes a contract voidable? Okay, duress would make it voidable. Good. The contract's that's voidable is any contract where you have the right to rescind it. You have a right to rescind. Okay. So it's not lacking one of those 4 essentials. It has all 4 essentials, but you have the right to rescind. Many of you guys are giving examples of threat, which is an example of duress, which is exactly right. Good. A minor would make a contract voidable as well. Wrong color house, good. The wrong color house has to do with that example of if you signed to buy a red house and the house is blue, okay, that would make the contract voidable, not void, because you may like that color, even if it's not the color you thought it would be. Okay. Now, here's another question for you guys as you're all listening. You signed to buy a red house and the house is blue. Okay. But the agent did not tell you it's blue, and the agent knew all along that was blue. What type of fraud is that? Who knows? What type of fraud is that? So the agent knew it was blue, but did not tell you it was blue. Nice job, Madison. Negative fraud. That's negative fraud. Actual fraud would be if I told you it was red, all right, when I knew, all right, when I knew the color, I told you something different. Negative fraud is when you just don't say anything at all, okay, when you say nothing. It's suppression of the facts, okay? All right, so negative fraud is when you say nothing. You know, but you say nothing. Actual fraud is straight up lying. Constructive fraud would be what? What would be constructive fraud? What do you guys think constructive fraud would be? Okay, so constructive fraud would be, oops, when you tell them that the property is red, all right, and you really thought it was red. You didn't know it was blue. You genuinely thought it was red. Okay, that's constructive fraud. So you got actual fraud where you're straight up lying with the words coming out of your mouth. Negative fraud's lying through omission, and constructive fraud's lying where you don't know it. Has everybody got that? That's super important you know that. Give me a thumbs up if you guys understand that. Everybody gives me a thumbs up. Okay, and when you suffer from that fraud, does that make the contract void or voidable? Void or voidable? Okay, it makes it voidable. Excellent, guys. Okay, the next word on the board you see is the word assessor. Okay, what's an assessor? All right, it's tax assessor. So they deal with value for taxes. It's like the same as an appraiser. Okay, thanks, Bill. All right, so it's the same as appraiser, but appraiser does it for the value when they're hot contracted out, usually contracted out by a lender, but it can be contracted out by anybody. An assessor is specific for taxes, okay? One who estimates the value of the property for tax purposes. Okay. Is taxes an encumbrance? Are taxes an encumbrance? What do you guys think? Are taxes an encumbrance? Okay, yes. Are taxes a lien? Are taxes a lien? Okay, the answer is yes. Are all encumbrances liens? Are all encumbrances liens? What do you guys think? Are all encumbrances liens? And the answer there is no. All encumbrances are not liens. Can you guys give me an example of an encumbrance that is not a lien? Can you guys give me an example of an encumbrance that is not a lien? Okay, an easement is one. Excellent. Are all liens encumbrances? Are all liens encumbrances? So all encumbrances are not liens, but are all liens encumbrances? And the answer is yes. Now remember, liens have to do with money. Liens have to do with money, okay? Encumbrance is a much more broader word that just means your ability to enjoy your property is limited. And that could be because somebody's walking across your property every day, i.e. an easement, or it's because you owe money, like a lien, okay? So that's why all liens are encumbrances, but not all encumbrances are liens. And the assessor evaluates your house for taxes, which is a lien, and there go an encumbrance. Okay. Hope asked me, why are taxes liens if they are paid? Because you're going to owe them again. Property taxes don't go away. You can't pay off all your property taxes in eternity. You're going to have to pay them off on a regular basis. They're always going to be there. Okay. Are taxes a specific lien or a general lien? Are taxes a specific lien or a general lien? And this is a tricky one. So think about it before you guys answer. Are taxes specific or general? Oh, nobody's got it right. Waiting for somebody to get it right. Oh, Elshua got it right. Elshua Sada, great job. Everybody give Elshua Sada a high five. She said it depends. She was the first one to write that. So super proud of her. Great job. Okay, it depends. Property taxes are specific liens. Income taxes are general liens. Okay, so it depends on the type of tax. So property tax is a specific lien because you only take your property. Income tax is a general lien, meaning they could come after everything. Has everybody got that? So be careful with that. And I purposely phrase that to you guys in a tricky way because I want you guys to think about this stuff before you answer. Okay, that was tricky of me, right? Tricky Joe, Tricky Joe. Okay, so when I asked you, is a lien specific or general, the correct answer would be, it depends on what type of lien. All right, moving right along. Bilateral contract. What's that one about? What's a bilateral contract? And born true, as far as I know, property taxes are always specific liens, but we can look into that more later. Okay, a bilateral contract is a promise for a promise. It's a promise for a promise. Good. Can you guys give me an example of a bilateral contract? Can you guys give me an example of a bilateral contract? Okay, so some of you guys writing a listing agreement. Are all listings bilateral contracts? Are all listings bilateral contracts? Okay, and listen to the way I asked that. Are all listings bilateral contracts? And the answer is no. Now, some of you guys say, yes, they are. You'd say yes because you're thinking of an exclusive listing. Exclusive listings are bilateral, and that's the one you guys will normally use. So traditionally, it's bilateral. But there is a type of listing that's unilateral. Who knows? What type of listing is unilateral? I see some of you guys wrote it already. Which one's unilateral? The open listing. Why is the exclusive right to sell listing a bilateral contract? Why is that bilateral? What do you guys think? Why is that exclusive right to sell listing a bilateral contract? Okay, the answer is because there's one broker. You cannot go with anybody else. So the reason it's bilateral, because I hire you to find a buyer. And in that contract, you need to be actively looking for a buyer. That's the contract. You don't have an option. In an exclusive right to sell listing, you need to be looking because I can't use anybody else, right? So therefore it's bilateral. And if you're not looking, you're in violation of the contract. An option listing is unilateral because if you don't go look for a buyer, I could use any other broker I want. I'm not committed to you. The relationship's not exclusive. Does that make sense? So in an open listing, if you're not doing your due diligence and looking for a buyer, no problem for me. I'll get somebody else. So you don't have to do anything, and I don't have to stick with you. I can move on. Where that is not true for an exclusive right to sell. Does everybody get that? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, excellent. Okay, you know another example of a bilateral contract? The PrepAgent website. You guys pay for access to it, then I guarantee you have access to the website. You pay, you get a login, and you're using the site. Example of a bilateral contract. You see them all the time. Okay, what does the word appreciation mean? Congratulations, Corridiculous. Great name. Had to be careful saying that name. Okay, so appreciation is the increase in value over time. What is the opposite of appreciation? What is the opposite of appreciation? Depreciation. There are 3 ways your property could depreciate. What are they? Depreciation goes into 3 categories that you need to know for your exam. Do you guys know what they are? Okay, so economic obsolescence is 1. Functional obsolescence is another, and physical deterioration is the 3rd. I need you guys to write this out fully. Functional obsolescence, economic obsolescence, and physical deterioration. The reason is because you may get a question on your exam that says, which of the following is not a form of obsolescence? And if you only remember economic, function, or physical, you may get that wrong. But if you remember the full world, functional obsolescence, economic obsolescence, and physical deterioration, you'll get that correct. All right? Promise me you guys will remember the full word: economic obsolescence, functional obsolescence, and physical deterioration. Usually I say remember as few words as possible, but this is one of those exceptions because I want you guys to remember physical deterioration is not a form of obsolescence. Okay? And that's super important. Okay, since we're talking about value, can you guys tell me the 4 essential elements of value? Sunshade, the question was, can you tell me which of those is not a form of obsolescence? And the answer was physical deterioration. Okay, the answer is dust, stud. You guys can remember stud, dust, tizida. I don't care. All right. So as long as you guys remember that, all right, you'll remember the essential elements of value. I prefer stud. I think being a stud's more valuable than being dust. Dust sounds very morbid to me. I don't know who thought that was relevant to value. Okay, so you got scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. Scarcity, utility, transferability, and demand. Okay. So is how much an item cost relevant to its value? Is how much an item cost relevant to its value? No. Could you imagine if you were selling your house and a buyer came and you said, my house is $500,000. And they said to you, well, what'd you pay for it? Your answer would be, I paid a whole lot of none of your business. That's what I paid. All right. That would essentially be the answer, because the cost it was to you is not relevant to how much you're selling it for. Right? You guys would answer that too. Okay, blanket mortgage. Okay, what is a blanket mortgage? Okay, a blanket mortgage covers multiple properties. Good. It's a mortgage over multiple properties. Excellent. A mortgage, is that a specific lien or a general lien? A mortgage, is that a specific lien or a general lien? A mortgage is a specific lien. Good. Who is the mortgagor? Who is the mortgagor? Okay, so Ryan Winter says buyer. That's close, but I prefer borrower, because remember, you don't need to buy a house to get a loan. Okay, but I understand what you're saying. It's a good answer. Okay, so the borrower. You guys know your OREE rule, correct? Tell me the OREE rule. It's a suffix that we got to learn when we're in elementary school. What's that OREE all about? OR gives, EE receives. So my question to you guys is, why is the mortgagor the borrower if they're receiving money? I don't get it. Who could explain it? Why is the mortgagor the borrower if they're receiving money and they got that OR? So who could explain that one? Because I get that question all the time, and people say it's an exception to the rule. I said there is no exception to the English language. It's a suffix. There's no exception. What they get wrong is they're forgetting about what has to be given before you receive money. Okay? So before any money is received, you guys are doing a great job. You got to make that pledge. You got to give a pledge. You got to write a promissory note. Okay? You got to give something before you can receive any money. So that's why the mortgagor is the OR, because they have to give that promissory note, that collateral. So if you want to borrow money from me, I need something that says you'll pay me back. So you got to give me a promissory note first, and then I'll lend you money. If you don't give me that promissory note, I'm not lending you money. I'm just giving you money, all right? Because I have no guarantee you're going to pay me back. Does that make sense, guys? So without any form of guarantee that you're going to pay me back, I'm not lending you money. I'm just giving it to you, which essentially happened to my brother. Somebody tell him to get a job. Oh, personal information. But we're all friends here, right? Hopefully he doesn't listen to the webinar. Okay. Moving right along. Okay, blockbusting. What is blockbusting? Okay, it's also known as panic settling, panic peddling. Okay. So blockbusting is when you say, you better sell your house because those people are moving to town. You don't want to live by those people, do you? All right. That's blockbusting. What federal act is blockbusting a violation of? What do you guys think? What federal law, federal act is blockbusting a violation of? So we all have to know this. Doesn't matter if you're in Florida, Washington, or Wisconsin. We all got to know this. Okay, this is the Fair Housing Act. This is not RESPA, and it's not the Sherman Antitrust Act. This is fair housing. Fair Housing Act, okay? Federal fair housing. What year did federal fair housing come into play? What do you guys think? What year did federal fair housing come into play? 1968. Great, guys. Please, everybody promise me, if you see 1968 on your exam, you're going to circle it. I don't care if it asks you how old you are. I don't care if it asks you how many kids you have. I don't care if it asks you what's the date on that day. If you guys see 1968, you will circle it. Everybody promise? And when you see 1968 on your exam, you're going to be like, man, that Joe, he's good stuff. That's quality right there. That guy deserves a cookie. Okay? So if you see 1968, all right, and you're reading the question, I'll be so annoyed because what does the question say? It doesn't matter what the question says. Just circle 1968. I don't care if the question's blah, 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 whatever, whatever, whatever. 1968. You got it? Everybody give me a thumbs up. Okay. 1968, because that's a very popular one on the real estate exam, okay? And they love to ask about that one because it's initiative fair housing. Fair housing is a hugely important act in our country's history. So that's why they like to ask about it, okay? 1968. Now, we talked about blockbusting, panic peddling, panic selling. What's it called when you're violating the Fair Housing Act of 1968, but you're working with buyers? Carmen wrote MLK, that's correct. Martin Luther King was assassinated in April 1968, which is the same month they did fair housing. Nice American history there, Carmen. Okay, steering is when you're working with buyers and you're saying, you better buy over here because you're one of those people. Your people live here. You should go there, right? That's steering. When you say, your people live here, you're one of them. That's steering. What would it be called if we're making a loan and we're violating fair housing? What do you guys think? What's it called if you're making a loan? Okay, that would be redlining. I don't want anybody to get those ones wrong on your exam. There's a lot of ones that are very difficult. Everybody talks about these long word problems that throw you off. And I get that those are difficult. But there's no excuse not to get this kind of word answer type stuff. Okay? So when you're talking about redlining, blockbusting, steering, we should all get that right because that's just simple memorization. So you guys hear me a lot, and this is why we're doing this webinar today. Vocabulary is what all begins. You guys should not do anything until you have the vocabulary memorized. And then if you get all the vocabulary right on your exam, you'll still get those long word problems wrong. I get that, but you'll have enough to pass. Okay, remember, nobody's going to know if you got 100% or if you got the worst passing score possible. All they know is that you are licensed. Okay, moving right along. It's true. It's like, what do they call the guy who graduated last from dental school? A dentist. And what do they call the person who got the worst passing score on the real estate exam? An agent. All right? That's all you guys got to remember. Okay, exclusive right to sell listing. We went over this quite a bit, so everybody should get this right. What's an exclusive right to sell listing? Okay, so Grant Williams, right? Pay me no matter what when your house sells. Well, it doesn't matter when. It's got to sell within that contracted period. Okay. Do you need to prove that you are the procuring cause in exclusive right to sell listing? Do you need to prove that you are the procuring cause in exclusive right to sell listing? No, you do not. Do you need to prove that you're the procuring cause in an exclusive agency listing? In exclusive agency, do you need to prove the procuring cause? Yes. Why? Why? Why do you need to prove that you're the procuring cause in an exclusive agency listing? Because the seller can sell it themselves, and if they do, they don't need to pay you. Okay, everybody ready for a tough question? Who's ready for a tough question? Write bring it if you're ready for a tough question. Write those 2 words, bring it. Okay. All right. I believe it was Grant, may have been somebody else, where I said you have to finish the deal within the terms of the contract. It's 90 days, within 90 days, okay? You got to finish it. But there's a clause where you could actually get paid if you close a deal after the listing expires. What is that clause called? The $1,000,000 question. What is that clause called that allows you to get paid when you close a deal after the listing has expired? Okay, good. Safety clause. I'll also accept protection period clause. Those mean the same thing. Okay, there's no such thing as a procuring clause. All right, safety clause, protection period clause. Great. Who here could write what that is? Who here could write what is that safety clause or protection period clause? What is that? Thanks, Katrina, for that little bit. Appreciate it. Okay, it means you could close a deal with a buyer that you found during the term of the listing. It is not a time to find a new buyer. Okay, so if you find a buyer during the term of the listing, but they don't finish their contracts during the term of the listing, you could complete those contracts after the listing expires. Now, there has to be a time frame, usually about 2 weeks, but it's whatever is negotiated. But you could close that deal. The important thing to note is that it is not a time to find a new buyer. It is not a time to find a new buyer. It's a time to close deals with buyers you found during the term of the listing. Okay, eminent domain. What's eminent domain all about? What is eminent domain? Excuse me. Eminent domain is when the government takes your property. What do they use to take that property? Thank you, Tasha. What do they use to take that property? What action is that called? Condemnation. Excellent. Condemnation. If they take your property, okay, and they did not give you just compensation, because in condemnation, they're supposed to give you just compensation. What's that called? When they do not give you just compensation. Inverse condemnation. Good job. That's inverse condemnation. Great job, guys. Eminent domain is one of the 4 government powers. What are the other 3? What do you guys think? What are the other 3 government powers? Okay, so I see some guys writing Pete. So what does that stand for? What does Pete stand for? Police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Congratulations, Christian. Great job. What state are you going to be selling real estate in, Christian? Let us know. Okay, Pete stands for police power, eminent domain, taxation, and is cheat. Can you guys give me an example of police power? Congrats, Celeste. Zoning would be an example of police power. Good. Building codes would be another example. Okay. So Miami-Dade County. Isn't that where that guy Pitbull's from? Miami-Dade County. Too old for that music, but it's catchy. Okay. So examples of police power would be building codes or zoning. Okay. The other one you guys have, so you have police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. What's escheat all about? What's escheat? No will. What's that called when you die with no will? Who knows what that is called when you die with no will? Okay, it's intestate. What's it called when you die with a will? What's it called when you die with a will? Okay, testate means you have a will. Good job. All right, excellent. Okay, everybody ready for this next question? If you own a, okay, you guys ready? This is gonna be a tough one. If you own a property as joint tenants with another person and you die testate, what happens to your property? If you own a property as a joint tenant with somebody else and you die testate, what happens to the property? What do you guys think? So if you own a property as a joint tenant with somebody else and you die testate, not intestate, testate, what happens? All right. And the answer is it goes to the other person because they have the right of survivorship. I tried to trick you guys with that one because the reality is it doesn't matter if you die testate or intestate. Right, guys? It does not matter if you die testate or intestate. That's irrelevant because when you have a joint tenancy, it goes right to the other people. Was that one tricky? I think I got some of you guys, but not all of you. So that testate, intestate part was actually irrelevant. All right. Okay, moving right along. What is a freehold estate? Oh, Shayla wanted me to repeat that. No problem. So Shayla, I just said if you if you have a property as joint tenants with somebody else and you die, it automatically goes to the other person because they have the right of survivorship. That's what that means. Okay, freehold estate. What does that mean? Okay, and Morgan asked me, what scenario would your interest go to the heirs instead of the other tenant? If you took it as tenants in common, Morgan, that's when it would go to your heirs. If you took it as tenants in common. Okay, freehold estate. So you have freehold estates and less than freehold estates. Freehold estate is ownership. Less than freehold estate is leases. Can you guys tell me the different types of freehold estates that you need to know for your exam? What are the different types of freehold estates you need to know for your exam? Okay, so you got your fee simple absolute, which is the highest degree of ownership. It's also known as an estate in fee. You have a fee simple defeasible, which means you could lose the property based on a certain condition. And you have a life estate, which means it's based upon somebody else's life. Okay? So you have those three. Fee simple defeasible is also known as fee simple determinable. Okay, so don't get that confused. They're the same thing. The other side, you have the less than freehold estates. Who could tell me the 4 types of less than freehold estates? The 4 types of less than freehold estates. What are the 4 types of less than freehold estates? So you got estate for years, periodic tenancy, estate at will, and estate at sufferance. Estate for years, periodic tenancy, estate at will, and estate at sufferance. All right. So that about wraps it up for today, guys. Be sure you join the real estate exam study group we create on Facebook. It's been hugely helpful to a lot of people. I've seen some great interaction there. And I don't know if you guys noticed, we also started a group for new agents. You do not need to pass your test to join that. The reason is because we wanted to separate people studying for the exam and people who want to start marketing themselves. And if you guys watch the social media, you'll notice I've been saying many, many times, ooh, love you too, Michelle. Thank you. All right. I've been saying many, many times that you guys should start marketing yourselves before you pass. Okay. You can start building your Facebook page. You can start like going to open houses. You just can't solicit business. So if you're studying, stay in that real estate exam study group we create on Facebook, okay? But if you want to talk about marketing, whether you've passed or not, right, then go into the new agent group, all right? And if you guys ask for the link, I don't know how to write it all out in the chat, but just look on Facebook and search, type in real estate exam study group. Thanks, Ryan. The hat's kind of my mark, kind of my thing. All right. Okay, so it's the real estate exam study group on Facebook, and then there's also the new agent group, PrepAgent new agent group. Okay, so just look for that there. With that being said, for all the premium members, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to start a little earlier, probably start 10 minutes before the hour tomorrow, and that's that. Okay, Maria, study that vocab. Study that vocab. Okay, thanks, guys. It's Joe from PrepAgent. I appreciate all of you. This is a labor of love. I get a little nervous doing this, and I really appreciate the positivity you guys share. It makes me feel good. This is kind of nerve-wracking.